Hello and thank you for joining me. I'm Heather Forgan of stampwithnellie.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the UK. And recently I shared a pop-up card, and I'm just going to show you some photographs of that right now. When I shared this on my blog, I did say that I would provide the measurements and a tutorial for a similar style card. So that's what I'm doing now. And I've got a sheet of Berry Burst card. I have already done lots of the panels with basic white card and then bright and beautiful designer series paper, and the elements that are going to pop out and on the side flaps are from the fabulous Attention Shoppers stamp set and the coordinating dies. And I have been doing some colouring with Stampin' Blends using Berry Burst, Lemon Lolly, Bubble Bath, some Crumb Cake and some Lost Lagoon, because all of these colours, except from the Crumb Cake, are in the designer series paper. So I will go through all of the measurements and they will all be in my blog post as well. I'm going to start with just a full sheet of card. I am using A4. If you're using US letter cardstock, that's absolutely fine as well. There'll be a couple of little tweaks later on, but we'll cover that then. So I'm going to get my scoreboard and we'll start scoring. Okay, so nice and simple. Full sheet of card and scoring at 2.5 inches, then at 5 inches, at 7.5 inches, and at 10 inches. Twist that around and then score right down at 3.5 inches, right to the end, which you can't see. Okay, so I've gone right the way to the end there. That is all of the scoring. We now need to do some cutting with the trimmer. And first of all, I'm going to cut this short side down to 7 inches. So that's how tall the card will be, 7 inches. Okay. I'm keeping this piece and I'm going to use that in just a moment. And then on the long side, I am going to cut that down to 10.5 inches. And I'm going to use this bit as well. Okay, I'm going to set this aside for now and then bring back this long piece that we cut off that's got the 4 score lines on it. Now, this is where it'll be slightly different if you're using US cardstock, because yours will be slightly wider by 1/4 inch, but will not be as long. That doesn't matter. So what I want to do is line up that score line there at the 1/2 inch mark. Okay, so we've got the mark there on the trimmer as well. So 1/2 inch, and chop that. We can discard that piece. Then the next score line, I'm going to put at 1/2 inch on that side of the trimmer. Chop that. Okay, we're keeping and we're using this. Then we're sliding that along and we're doing the same again. So that score line at the 1/2 inch mark and chop and discard that bit. And then that one at the 1/2 inch mark, that side, and chop it. Okay, so we've got 2 pieces like that. Okay, so they measure in total 3.5 inches by 1 1/4-ish. What I want to do is just chop that in half, and I'm just eyeballing it that we're halfway. That doesn't matter. That does not have to be precise. And we'll do the same with the other one. Halfway, chop it. Okay. So with the US cardstock, your ones will be a little bit wider, fraction wider, but that is not a problem at all. Okay, so that's our 4 supports for the middle of the card. With this piece here, again, I'm going to chop it in half. So this bit was slightly narrower than the first bit we chopped up. Chop it in half, and then I'm going to take that to 2 3/8 of an inch, and I'll keep that bit and swivel it around. So I'm not using the bit with the score line on it, but 2 3/8. And I'm going to use these as reinforcements for the internal struts once we've added all of our embellishments. There we go, 2 3/8 again. Okay, so we've got 4 pieces that are 2 3/8 by 5/8, something like that. So they are slightly narrower, just fractionally, you probably can't see that, fractionally narrower than those, and that's absolutely fine. And they are definitely slightly shorter than that because we're going to fold these bits here like that, and we want that to be able to fit in there. Okay, so that is the structure bits for the inside. And I'm just going to get rid of those other bits that I don't need so I don't confuse myself. Right, we can bring this back in here. Now, as I mentioned, I've already prepared these pieces, and they are going to stick on here like that. So this is going to be the outside here, and I'm just covering all 4 panels, top and bottom. So I've got 8 pieces here, and I wrote on the back of one of them. Oh, there we go. So the basic white is 3 1/4 by 2 1/4, and that meant that I could put my DSP to be 3 inches by 2 inches, and that meant that I got more out of my 6 by 6 designer series paper pack. Okay, so I am just going to glue all of them on here just now. Right, that is all glued. I am now just going to do some folding and burnishing. I could have done that earlier. It's a good way to make sure I've got everything all nice and neat. Okay. Like that. Now, this one is also going to have to fold that way. Okay, so when it is folded up, it will look like that. So that is 5 inches by 7 inches, fit into an envelope for a card that size. We need to make the panels flop down. So I'm going to have my join at the back there. Okay. I'm going to take this little panel out here. Let me get my snips. I'm taking a tiny little wedge off below that score line there, and then cut right down this score line here. Okay. Now you might wish to use bigger scissors, and I think I'm just going to do that for the next ones. Okay, so that goes in my trash so I don't confuse it with any of the other little bits I've got set aside here. Okay. But that's the only bit that gets cut off, so that's good. Right, cut right down those score lines. Okay, so get yourself lined up and then chop right to that horizontal score line there. All right, and do the same with these ones. Sorry, I am holding this upside down just to confuse you, but also it's easier for me. Okay, and then that one there, right down. There we go. So we've got our join there, and as I say, that is going to be my back piece there. So that is the one that I want to put a plain piece of card so that I can write a message on it. So with this one, the lemon lolly card measures 2 1/4 by 3 1/4, and the white piece measures 2 inches by 3 inches. Go. Okay, so I'm going to open this out again. I'm going to pop it on there. Okay, so that is, as I say, that is the back one. It's going to sit like that. And I want my happy birthday one to be the front, so that needs to go there, and then I can put those two on there. All right, so let's just do that. I would definitely say that sticking all the panels on while your card is nice and flat is the way to do it. Okay, so that's going to look like that. Now I need to put some glue on here. Okay. Fold that over and then fold that over to match up and give it a good press. And then, hey presto, you have your closed card, you have your open card. Right, so we now need to put our structure inside so that we can then add in all of our lovely decorations. Okay, and I'll get to the decorations in a moment, I promise. But we'll do all of the construction first. So with these, we've got these little 1/2 inch tabs. Just folding them. And then I'm going to put some glue on the back, on both of those, like that. And we'll start popping them inside. Now, I like to give that a little bend, and you kind of want to decide how far down you want to go with these. If you go too far down, then your decorations on your acetates have got more to bend forward, and if they're top wavy, they'll all just flop on top of each other. So I wouldn't go too far down, but likewise, you kind of want these to be a little bit hidden. So I am going down maybe about 3/4 of an inch. So I've got that, probably really impossible to see. I've got that edge right up to the back there, that score line there, okay? So that is glued in place. And then I'm going to do exactly the same at that side. I'm just pushing that straight again. So that edge is right against there. And then I can fold it, and that puts enough pressure on it to get it exactly in place. Okay, it's a little bit squint. In fact, it's a lot squint. How did you manage that? Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. And then do exactly the same with the next ones. I'm going to try and put this one on straight though. And again, with this one, line that piece up with the last one that you put in. Right on that edge there. And the same there. I'm going to move that a little bit higher up so that it is straighter. Right, we've got 2 in place. Awesome. Same again. Glue either side. Give it a little bit of a bend to get it in place. And make sure it's where you want it, both sides. Fold it closed, press it in place. So clever, isn't it? I cannot take credit for this. I first made one of these following instructions from my lovely friend Jez. And it was Jez's idea to keep your card, score it all, and then cut it, trim it down, and use the bits for these panels. This one's a little bit more tricky to get in place. You haven't got quite as much room to play with, so you may well end up with glue places you don't really want it. If that is the case, you can sort it out later. Okay, that's not too bad. What I will do, the glue dries clear, so you're not going to see it, but what I will do is when I'm finished, I will dust it with an embossing buddy, and that'll take away any of the tackiness that's left over on glue that's kind of smeared trying to put those in place. Okay, so hopefully you can see how that is. Okay, so we've now got structures to put our embellishments on, and I have already prepared most of that, so they're going to stick on there. But what we need to do is make sure each time that it doesn't encroach. So I need to make sure that I'm not going over the top there. Okay, so I'm kind of lining that up. I'm putting my thumbnail where I want the thing to go. Add my glue there. Pop that in place. And then I use these tweezers that when you let them go, they hold things in place. And I'm just going to leave that there while I do the next one. Okay, so that's kind of how I do it. But as you see, I've used window sheet. It is really sturdy. It will stand. It'll wobble. But that's what we want it to do. We want it to wobble. But it doesn't fall flat over because it is really nice and thick. It's the thickest acetate I've ever worked with, and I love it. So that's Stampin' Up window sheets. Now, what you might also know is that when you colour with Stampin' Blends, it can bleed through. I didn't want whoever gets this card to look at the message on the back and see it all bled through on there. So what I have done with mine is I have sandwiched the window sheet between a coloured one and just a plain white one. Okay, and I'm going to show you me putting the last couple together. So one of them's a bottle, and for that you'll need a thinner strip of window sheet. So just adding glue all over that, and you don't need to put it right the way up. You can just add it kind of up to halfway like that, and then I've got a plain one, and I'm going to put the glue on what would be the top side of the plain one. Pop that on there, and then I can just make sure that they are fully lined up and pressed down, and that is ready to get popped in as well. I need another piece of, so basically your window sheet, you're kind of just playing around with the sizes dependent on, so this one's going to go down the front there, so it doesn't need to be terribly long, and but I wanted it to be a little bit wider so that it holds up this little bunch of flowers. Love this stamp set, the Attention Shoppers. All the little things that can go in the shopping cart. Brilliant. Absolutely love them all. So I'm putting that down and I'm squishing it up a little bit. Like that. Now, if you do get glue coming out on your window sheet, again, not the end of the world. You can take a cotton bud later on and tidy that up. Okay, so that's that one, and then again, this is the top side. I'm going to put glue all over that. Belt and braces. And then pop that down on there, line that up. Okay, I have that there, and I have got a little bit of glue on there, So I've got a cloth, I'm just going to wipe that off the now whilst it's still wet. And I've got glue, oops, all over my sheet as well. Okay. And I've got glue on my fingers too. Right, so still a little tidy up. And remember what order I wanted those things to go in. I wanted my berry, that one to go in there. So again, I'm lining that up where I think I want it to be. Kind of close it and just make sure that it's not too high, but also not coming out of the side. So if I did that, if I placed it there, that would be outside and it wouldn't fit in my envelope. So I need to be careful about the height and also the width. Okay, so that's where I want it to be. I'm lining that up with that strip across. Got my thumbnail, bottom of my thumbnail is where those met. A little bit of glue on there and pop that where I wanted it, and then just use my tweezers to hold that for a moment or three, and then decide on my next one. So that's this one. Now, I left mine quite long so that I could essentially play around with the arrangement of them. But that does mean sometimes that you need to chop a bit off so that it actually fits. That one's fine. And it doesn't take long for it to kind of stick. And you can do them at a little jaunty angle rather than straight as well. So I'm going there. And it's a little bit like flower arranging. You do whatever you think is pretty with whichever things you're putting in. Okay. Then another bottle to put at this side. I'm going to take a little bit off the bottom of that. And I'm just going to check everything still fits in when I close it. And because you're using acetate, you can use card if you don't have window sheets or any other kind of acetate. But because you're using acetate, it does give you a little bit more wiggle time to decide, do I want that straight? Do I want it up a bit? If you use card, the adhesion's a lot quicker. And I also really like that things appear to be floating. That one there. Liking this. I'll have another bottle down there. This definitely needs chopped. And you could also add things to the actual back panel and the front panel as well if you wanted to have lots of things floating about in here. So sweet. And then my little flowers. And then there. All right, we are nearly there, folks. Nearly there. I'm just going to give that a moment for them all to kind of set in place before I try and put these strips on the back. Back in a moment. Okay, so that's how it's looking at the moment. And all I need to do is put those little struts along the back there just to hold that acetate. It's just an extra strengthening. This is an extra step, really. But I think if you're going to all of the trouble to make a card like this, then you kind of want to make sure that nothing falls over. Everything's going to be kept firmly in place. And these little strips help you do that. Just line them up, press them down, and line it up. Happy with that, press it. Okay, so again, you might get a little bit of glue on your bits of acetate or anywhere else, but we can tidy that up. When I make these cards, I tend to make them, then let everything fully dry, and then I can go in with a cotton bud that has a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it, and I can take any little glue marks off the window sheet. And as I said earlier, if there's any tacky glue on the sides of that, just an embossing buddy, rub that up on the inside, on the edges, and that will adhere to any of the tacky glue. No one's going to see the glue, but you don't want it to kind of stick while you're doing that, right? If you know what I mean. So yeah, and there it is. That is the construction of this type of pop-up card. So folds flat, it's chunky, and you could add some gems or whatever. I did not pop any of these things up with dimensionals because I didn't want to add any more bulk for trying to get it into an envelope. I think that is super cute with the attention shoppers, gift bag, cake, flowers, wine bottles. I mean, they all just say happy birthday, don't they? So the happy birthday is from there as well, stamped with Berry Burst ink. I used Stylish Shapes die to cut that, but it's actually a bit too long, so I put it in with the die, cut it once, and then put the die in again and cut the end off the second time to make it shorter and to fit in there. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. As I say, all of the measurements will be on my blog post. There's a link to that in the description for this video. And if you're new to my channel, please do click on the subscribe button, click the bell, get notification the next time I upload a tutorial. And thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you come back soon. Until then, please do take care. Bye bye.